Welcome to the expert series from Selling Your Canadian Business. Our book lays out the expert team of advisors every Canadian business owner needs in their corner. This series brings those experts into the conversation, one at a time. Disclaimer: this series is for educational purposes only and is not professional advice. Always consult qualified professionals. Find our book and more resources at sellingyourcanadianbusiness.ca. Here is your host.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Prowse from the Shaughnessy Group, and thanks for joining us today for the inaugural episode of the Expert Interview Series. This is our opportunity to interview professionals who help business owners grow and eventually exit their business. Just a little bit of administration before we begin. Please check out sellingyourcanadianbusiness.com. We recently released a book called Selling Your Canadian Business. It is a great resource for business owners who are thinking about selling their business, who are, maybe if you're an advisor who's advising someone who's thinking about selling their business, or even if you're on the buy side. It gives lots of good planning tips, walks you through the M&A process, gives you some education on that. And as well at the website, there's some blogs and newsletters that you can take advantage of. Those are great resources for you on your journey towards an eventual successful exit. So with that out of the way, let's introduce my first guest. My first guest is Joe Graci, the Managing Director for the M&A Club in Ontario. Joe is a former business owner himself and is now involved with preparing business owners for eventual business exit. Joe is also a certified exit planning advisor and is a member of the Exit Planning Institute in the US. So Joe, thanks for joining us for the inaugural episode of the Expert Interview Series. Really happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, David, and I really appreciate being on the show and being your first guest.
Well, great having you. Good. So, Joe, tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got involved with exit planning.
Yeah, so I've run 3 different businesses in the past. So a scale up, a turnaround, a startup. I've been through the full cycle of business ownership, from buying into a business to exiting, and going through that process a few times. And so I thought, what's next for me? What do I do? What do I focus on? And how could I be impactful and helpful to other business owners? Because there's this subject of exit planning and preparing for one is a completely different skill set and a different animal altogether. So I decided to focus my time and attention around helping other business owners with planning their exits, while still being also involved in the M&A Club and being part of a community that is supporting business owners.
Excellent. So Joe, we're both members of the Exit Planning Institute that you just mentioned. Tell us a little bit about the value acceleration methodology and how can a business owner use it?
Yeah, so the Exit Planning Institute's value acceleration methodology is essentially a strategic business framework that integrates exit planning into your daily operations. So it's meant to focus on rapidly maximizing a company's enterprise value, to help owners focus on the one metric that really matters but rarely gets measured, and that is enterprise value. So the value acceleration methodology really helps put all of that into perspective, all the while simultaneously aligning the owner's business, personal, and financial goals, which form the 3 legs of the stool around the value acceleration methodology.
Now, you just mentioned the 3 legs of the stool. So how can a business owner use that methodology of the 3 legs to help improve their chances for a successful business exit?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the 3 legs, as I mentioned, consist of business, personal, and financial. And so from a business perspective, you're trying to maximize your transferable value while reducing risk in your business. Now, the operative word here is transferable value, okay? Because if your business isn't transferable, there isn't a lot of value in it. And that's a little bit of a learning curve for business owners to fully comprehend. From a personal perspective, it's about life after business planning. Do you have a, a personal goal when you're done your business? What does that look like? What will your day to day look like? There's a very big shift that happens after you sell your business, and you want to be prepared personally, from a family perspective, from your own perspective. What's going to fill your day? What's going to fill your happiness index? What's going to fill your bucket, so to speak? And then finally, it's financial planning. So what does your personal financial plan look like? What does your, estate planning need to look like? Tax planning, wealth preservation. There's all those things related to the financial side that are highly impactful to what life will look like for you after selling your business. So the three legs of the stool are really there to organize a business owner's focus around their exit journey.
Yeah, and I know from my own experience, the three legs of the stool is a beautiful type of methodology because I think traditionally the financial planning part usually gets taken care of fairly well for most people, certainly on the planning side, the tax planning side. But we both know that the business readiness aspect is not always done as well, or the business owner leaves it to the last minute to try to make improvements, and that's not really a good strategy. And for the most part, I know as an M&A person, the personal readiness part is the toughest one that usually gets completely overlooked, and this is what causes the most problems during a sale, is because some emotional personal aspect of you know their readiness hasn't really been dealt with. So not dealing with, let's say, all sorts of different exit options, but maybe they realize, oh my God, I'm selling to my competitor. I didn't really think it through, right? So we tend to see that a lot. So I really personally I like the methodology because I think it's very sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a couple of really important things there, especially around the personal readiness, the mental preparation required to go into a process like that. And we can get into that a little bit later, but definitely an important piece.
So, in your opinion, why do some owners fail to achieve their goals when trying to exit their business?
Yeah, so the most obvious reason for failing to achieve your goals when exiting your business is, really not planning early enough. It takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years to prepare a business for an optimal exit. And so that becomes a challenge because you realize that, hey, there's things that need to be addressed in the business to make it transferable, to make it marketable. And you need multiple years to plan for that, right? And that could change your business strategy altogether, because you want to make sure that your business is being built in the direction of an exit. And so it's a constantly evolving process. But the other thing that business owners fail to achieve their goals um, is deferring the exit discussion until there's an adverse event or maybe an unsolicited offer, and that puts the business owner on their heels. Okay. There's a lot of things that you need to again mentally prepare for, but also business wise in your business, to make sure that it's being done in a thoughtful and programmatic and process driven way. And so when that doesn't happen, it really limits your options, and it limits your ability to find the right buyer for your business.
Yeah, and I tend to find, I think the optimal time frame is 3 to 5 years ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I see business like exit planning as a part of business planning, right? So if you incorporate incorporate exit planning as part of your business planning process, you're already way ahead of the curve there. And you're also destigmatizing for you and your management team the concept of exit, okay, and transitions. There's definitely a lot of teachable moments in that when you incorporate exit planning as part of your business planning conversation. And one of the things that is, highly underrated from a leadership perspective is how engaged your management teams can be when you start introducing it as part of your business planning conversation.
Yeah. So what is one thing a business owner can maybe start today to improve their chances, to improve their valuation, improve their chances for a successful exit?
Yeah, so you mentioned the first thing, what can they do to improve their valuation? Uh, get a valuation done in your business. That's the very first thing you should do. Like, what are the triggers? What are the levers that drive value in your business? It may not be what you think it is. A lot of times the focus is on revenue and bottom line profit, but that's only one indicator of whether a business is valuable or not. So the first thing is really understand what it takes, what's incorporated in getting a valuation of your business done. Secondly, it's identifying the risks that buyers would perceive for your business, because part of a successful exit and valuation is what is the buyer's perceived risk of your business, and the operative word here is perceived risk. Okay. So you may not think something is a risk in your business, but your buyer or buyers in general may see that as risk. So just identifying what those are from a buyer perspective is the second step. And then finally, the third one is to build in the direction of an exit. So when you're building in a direction of an exit, your goal is to try to be attractive to the widest group of buyers that are out there. Not just strategic buyers, but private equity buyers, financial buyers, competitors. So you want to make sure you have the widest pool of available buyers that you're attractive to. So when you're building in the direction of an exit, again, business planning, exit planning as embedded in your business planning is going to be really important for that.
And I know from my own experience that the valuation piece that you mentioned is a real wake up call for a lot of business owners, because I tend to find a lot of them have a misconceived notion about the valuation of the business. And many of them, it's what we call the golf club valuation, where they talk to somebody, at the golf club and they got 7 times something. We don't know what that something is, and we don't, and maybe they deserve that 7 times multiple, but that has nothing to do with the particular business that the other owner is, running. So I tend to find that valuation is a great starting point, because it really tells you this is where you are today, and then it's a good framework for them to think about, well, where do they want to be? What do they want their enterprise value to be?
Yeah, from my perspective, from my own experience, unrealistic valuations are pretty much driven by three things: emotions, ego, and lifestyle needs. And so, and not market data, right? Which is where, what it should be, based on. But when you don't do enough planning and engaging around valuations, how it works, and how it gets done, uh, those three things tend to be in central focus for the business owner, and it could be harmful to the process.
Yeah. So if like what would you say is like the biggest reason if somebody's unsuccessful? We both know business owners who have tried to sell their business, not been successful. Some of them keep grinding away. Others just, end up liquidating the business and shutting it down. So like what would be the kind of the biggest reason why that's happened?
Yeah, there's a few reasons uh, why an unsuccessful attempt at an exit would happen, and we just talked about one of them, which was unrealistic valuations, and setting expectations on what the market is willing to pay for
Yeah.
your business. not based on, again, emotions, ego, lifestyle needs, etc. But according to Exit Planning Institute, nearly 70 to 80% of businesses that are put on the market fail to sell. And so there's a couple of other reasons for that. One is high owner dependency. And that's an area that I'm very passionate about and I specialize in as far as my own private practice around exit planning and scale up growth planning. But and that's covered in chapter 9 of Selling Your Canadian Business. So make sure you read that chapter because high owner dependency is a big obstacle to selling your business. The other ones are not passing due diligence, right? I mean, it can feel really exciting to get an offer, to get a letter of intent. But I think where a lot of business owners underestimate, even for myself, having gone through the exit process before, is the amount of due diligence that happens from buyers today is a lot higher than it was before, right? And so they're going to be looking for concentration risks. They're going to be looking at how strong are your internal processes, what are your dependency risks, what are your financial risks, and so when you go through your due diligence process, a lot of deals don't get through to the end because of that, right? They might love the business, they might love the business owner and how they're running their business, but it may not pass all of the due diligence. So that's a really big obstacle. And then finally, it's cold feet. It's not having that mental preparation going into a process. Number one, it's exhausting. Okay, so
For sure.
so if you're an owner operator and you're putting in 110% of your time into running your business, right? You need to be able to free up at least 30 to 40% of your capacity to get to be engaged in an exit process and that exit preparation. So there's a big mental piece here. Business owners get exhausted through the process. It's very taxing, can be very frustrating at times. So a lot of that could lead to cold feet, and then suddenly deals no longer on the table anymore.
And I think that last point is getting back to like the personal readiness, where it's a very emotional process selling a business, and I think if some of the things weren't kind of properly dealt with during the planning stage, it can make the chaos of sometimes selling your business, it can be too much, and that's where a lot of deals actually blow up, is during that stage.
Well, and has the conversation about exit been, I would say, properly discussed even within your family, right? And so a lot of times, your own, as a business owner and operator, yourself being mentally prepared is one thing, but is your family prepared? Are they ready to receive you post exit? What does that look like? What's in it for them? Like, the reality is we're doing this for our families too, and they're a part of the process. So I think making sure that it's properly discussed with your spouse or partner, children, etc. Whoever's really important in your life is critical.
And you brought up the other point about due diligence, and I know from my own experience that there's more buyers than ever, and they're more sophisticated. So that means due diligence is actually getting tougher over time, because you got private equity, you got family offices, you've got search funds that they're a lot more sophisticated. And the reality is that for a lot of them, especially if they're financial buyers, that due diligence process is incredibly important to them. So that means that if you're not ready, there's a pretty good chance that they're either going to walk away, or they're going to try to renegotiate the price downward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Joe, you're actively involved with the M&A Club. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role? What is the M&A Club? What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, so M&A Club is a national organization. We have 3,000 members, 16 chapters across Canada. And our role is twofold. One is to help educate the network around on different topics relevant to the M&A industry. And secondly, to build a network of strong relationships so that service providers can help business owners and bring in the right people into a transaction or deal. So really the M&A Club consists of investment bankers, lawyers, lenders, private equity, insurance, tax, valuators, anyone involved in the transaction ecosystem. Wealth planners are involved in M&A Club. And so we try to ensure that service layer is very diverse within our network, but we also encourage business owners that are actively selling their business or actively buying a business to get involved in M&A Club. It's a great way to meet service providers in their ecosystem that are specialized in supporting deals, as well as building that network and getting that education.
And I've definitely seen people on the buy side come to the M&A Club meetings, and I know we're actively involved with it, and I think it's a wonderful networking group, and hopefully it just continues to grow.
Yeah,
well, thanks
absolutely.
very much, Joe. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate your insights into exit planning and the need to build a structure to be successful towards an exit. So hopefully there was some good food for thought for the business owners who are watching today. And thank you to the audience for joining us for our first episode of the expert interview series. We're going to have more as time moves on. But please check out sellingyourcanadianbusiness.com for some great resources, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
That concludes this episode of the Expert Series from Selling Your Canadian Business. This conversation is for educational purposes only and is not professional advice. Always consult qualified professionals. Click on any of the additional resources on screen or visit sellingyourcanadianbusiness.ca. Thank you for joining us.